What if the things falling apart in your life right now are not signs of failure, but signs of awakening? For many people, there comes a moment when life begins to change in ways that are difficult to understand. Plans that once seemed clear suddenly stop working. Opportunities that once felt secure begin to disappear. Relationships that once felt stable slowly begin to shift or fade. And the path you once believed was leading toward your future may suddenly feel empty or strangely misaligned. When these changes happen all at once, it can feel overwhelming. It may seem as if the structure of your life is breaking apart piece by piece. You may find yourself asking questions that never crossed your mind before. Why is everything changing? Why do things that once felt certain now feel unstable? Why does it feel like the life I built is no longer holding together? These questions are natural. Human beings are wired to seek stability and predictability. We build routines, relationships, and goals that create a sense of order in our lives. When those structures begin to collapse, our first reaction is often fear. It can feel like everything you worked for is being taken away. But sometimes, what looks like destruction is actually transformation. Many people who walk the path often described as the chosen one experience a stage where their old life begins to unravel. Situations that once supported their identity begin to dissolve. Environments that once felt comfortable start to feel restrictive. Even long-held ambitions may begin to lose their meaning. At first, this stage can feel deeply confusing. You may try to hold on to the life you once understood. You may try to repair structures that no longer seem to function the way they used to. But despite your efforts, things continue shifting. And that is when an important realization begins to emerge. In many cases, this collapse is not punishment, it is restructuring. Life has a way of guiding people toward the version of themselves they are meant to become. But sometimes the life we build in earlier stages of our journey is based on expectations that do not truly belong to us. We follow paths that were suggested by society, by family expectations, or by the desire to fit into environments that reward conformity. Those paths can appear stable for a time. They can provide comfort and direction. But as a person grows internally, something begins to change. Their awareness expands. Their sense of purpose deepens. The life they once accepted without question begins to feel incomplete. When that internal shift happens, the structures of the old life can no longer hold the same meaning. For many chosen ones, the universe seems to dismantle the old version of their life before revealing the new one. The collapse of certain situations is not meant to destroy their future. It is meant to remove what no longer aligns with who they are becoming. This process can feel uncomfortable because the new path is not always immediately visible. You may feel like you are standing in the space between two chapters. The life you once knew is fading, but the life that awaits you has not yet fully revealed itself. However, this in-between stage is often where the most important transformation takes place. It is where awareness deepens. It is where clarity begins to form. It is where the person you are meant to become starts emerging from the experiences that once felt confusing or painful. Understanding this process can change the way you see the challenges you are facing right now. Instead of seeing them as signs that your life is falling apart, you may begin to recognize them as signals that something new is being prepared. In this video, we are going to explore why your old life may be falling apart, the deeper reasons behind these shifts, and the signs that you are actually moving through a powerful transformation rather than a personal failure. And before we continue, if this message resonates with you in any way, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who may need to hear these words today, and subscribe to the channel for more content created for the chosen ones. Most people build their lives based on expectations they inherit from the world around them. From a very young age, society quietly teaches us what success is supposed to look like. We are shown certain paths and told that if we follow them, our lives will make sense. A stable career, familiar routines, predictable relationships, and socially accepted milestones become the blueprint that many people try to follow. At first, this blueprint appears logical. It provides structure and direction during the early stages of life, when individuals are still discovering who they are. People are encouraged to pursue opportunities that promise security. They are guided toward professions that offer stability. they are often told that happiness will come from meeting certain expectations that society has already defined. For many individuals, this path works well enough. It offers a sense of belonging and reassurance that they are moving in the right direction. But for others, especially those who eventually experience deeper self-awareness, something begins to feel slightly out of place. The life they are building may appear successful from the outside, but internally, a quiet tension begins to grow. During the early stages of life, many decisions are made with the goal of fitting in. People choose careers that seem respectable. They form relationships that align with cultural expectations. They adopt routines that mirror the lifestyles of those around them. These choices often provide a sense of stability because they follow patterns that have already been accepted by society. However, stability does not always mean alignment. As people grow older and gain more life experience, they sometimes begin to question the foundations of the life they have built. This questioning does not happen overnight. It usually begins slowly, through moments of reflection that occur during periods of change or challenge. A person may start asking themselves deeper questions about meaning and purpose. They may begin to wonder whether the direction they are following truly reflects who they are inside. At first, these questions might appear small or unimportant, but over time, they grow stronger. For many chosen ones, this stage marks the beginning of an internal awakening. As awareness expands, individuals begin noticing things that they once ignored. A job that once seemed promising may start to feel repetitive or emotionally draining. The excitement that once motivated them may fade, replaced by a feeling that something essential is missing. Similarly, relationships that once appeared supportive may begin revealing subtle imbalances. Conversations may feel less genuine. Certain connections may appear to be based more on convenience or habit than on real understanding. Situations that once felt comfortable may now feel limiting. Even personal goals can begin to change. Ambitions that once seemed important may suddenly lose their emotional weight. Achievements that once seemed meaningful may no longer feel fulfilling. The vision of success that once guided a person's decisions may begin to look different when viewed through a deeper sense of awareness. These realizations can be deeply uncomfortable. Human beings naturally seek consistency in their lives. When someone begins questioning the foundations of their identity, it can create a sense of instability. A person may begin to realize that the life they built was based partly on expectations that did not fully belong to them. This awareness creates a difficult but necessary moment of truth. A person must confront the difference between the life they have built and the life they genuinely want to live. This realization can feel overwhelming because it challenges years of decisions, habits, and commitments. It may force someone to reconsider the direction they have been following. It may raise questions about whether their current environment truly supports the person they are becoming. When this awareness arrives, change becomes inevitable. The mind cannot easily return to ignorance once clarity has appeared. Once a person begins recognizing misalignment in their life, it becomes increasingly difficult to ignore it. Situations that once seemed acceptable may now feel impossible to maintain. At this stage, the structures of the old life begin to weaken. A job that once felt stable may begin to feel unbearable. A relationship that once felt comfortable may start showing cracks that were previously overlooked. A lifestyle that once seemed normal may begin to feel disconnected from the person's evolving identity. These changes can create the impression that life is falling apart. From the outside, it may look like a series of unfortunate events. A career shift, a relationship ending, a change in direction that seems unexpected or even chaotic. But beneath the surface, something more complex is taking place. The collapse is often not destructive. In many cases, it is corrective. When structures are built on foundations that no longer match a person's internal development, they cannot remain stable forever. Eventually, life begins to reorganize itself. Situations that no longer align with the person's growth begin to dissolve. This process may feel uncomfortable, but it serves an important purpose. Think of it as the difference between renovation and destruction. When an old building is renovated, certain parts must be removed before the new structure can take shape. Walls may need to be taken down. Outdated materials may need to be replaced. Temporary disorder may appear before the new design becomes visible. The same principle often applies to personal transformation. The old version of life may have served its purpose for a period of time. It may have provided valuable experiences and lessons that helped shape the person's awareness. But once those lessons have been learned, the old structure may no longer support further growth. At that point, the collapse becomes part of the transition. Chosen ones often experience this stage more intensely because their path involves deeper self-discovery. Their awareness pushes them to examine parts of their life that others may ignore. As they become more conscious of their values, their direction, and their purpose, the gap between their inner identity and their external life becomes more visible. When that gap becomes too large, change must occur. This is why situations that once felt permanent can suddenly begin to shift. It is not because life is punishing you. It is because the version of life you once created no longer fits the person you are becoming. Sometimes the old life must collapse in order to create space for a new one. If the old structure remained unchanged, it would leave little room for new opportunities, new environments, and new relationships that better reflect your growth. The collapse clears the ground so that something more aligned can be built. Although the process may feel uncertain, it often marks the beginning of a deeper transformation. The dismantling of the old life is not the end of the journey. It is the moment when the foundation for the next chapter begins to take shape. When someone is moving through a deep internal transformation, the changes rarely happen all at once in a clear and organized way. Instead, they appear through patterns that gradually reveal themselves over time. At first, these patterns can feel confusing or even unsettling because they challenge the stability that once defined everyday life. However, when you begin to observe them closely, you may realize that these changes follow a certain logic. They are not random disruptions. They are signals that something within you is evolving. One of the first signs that your old life may be falling apart for a deeper reason is a noticeable loss of interest in things that once felt important. Activities that used to bring excitement may now feel repetitive or emotionally empty. Environments that once seemed engaging may suddenly appear draining or uninspiring. You might find yourself sitting in familiar situations and feeling strangely disconnected. Conversations that once captured your attention may now feel superficial. Topics that once mattered deeply may no longer hold the same emotional weight. This shift can be confusing because nothing external may have changed dramatically. The same places exist, the same routines continue, the same people remain part of your environment, yet something inside you responds differently than before. What has changed is your awareness. As people grow internally, their perception of meaning begins to evolve. The mind becomes less satisfied with surface-level experiences and begins searching for something deeper. What once felt fulfilling may now feel incomplete because your inner standards for meaning have expanded. This does not mean the things you once valued were wrong. They may have served an important purpose during an earlier stage of your life. But as your awareness develops, your emotional and intellectual needs begin to shift. What once nourished you may no longer provide the same sense of purpose. Another sign that transformation is taking place often appears through gradual changes in relationships. Human connections are often built around shared interests, shared values, and shared stages of life. When one person begins changing internally, those shared foundations can begin shifting as well. You may notice that some relationships begin to feel distant, even when there is no obvious conflict. Conversations may become shorter or less engaging. The connection that once felt effortless may now require more energy to maintain. In some cases, people may drift away naturally as your priorities change. Individuals who once shared your goals or interests may now appear to be moving in a different direction. The bond that once felt strong may slowly weaken as both people evolve along separate paths. This process can feel emotionally complex because relationships often represent stability and familiarity. Losing certain connections can feel like losing pieces of your identity. You may wonder whether you are responsible for the distance or whether something is wrong with the changes you are experiencing. But often, this shift is a natural part of personal growth. As your awareness evolves, you begin seeking connections that reflect your current values and mindset. This does not mean you must reject the people from your past. It simply means that not every relationship will continue in the same form forever. Just as people grow and change individually, the dynamics between them also evolve. Another powerful aspect of this transformation is the strange feeling of existing between two worlds. Many people describe this stage as a kind of emotional and psychological transition, where the past no longer feels like home, but the future has not yet fully revealed itself. You may sense that you are no longer the person you once were. Your thinking has changed, your interests have shifted, your priorities have evolved. Yet at the same time, you may not fully understand the person you are becoming. This in-between state can create a sense of uncertainty. The identity that once defined your life is gradually dissolving, but the new identity is still forming. The direction that once guided your decisions no longer feels satisfying, yet the new direction is not completely visible. During this period, many people experience moments of doubt. They may wonder whether they have lost their sense of purpose. They may question whether they are making the right choices. The absence of clear answers can feel uncomfortable because human beings naturally prefer certainty. However, this transitional stage often serves an important role in the transformation process. It creates the space necessary for deeper reflection. Without the pressure of immediate clarity, the mind has time to examine what truly matters. Old assumptions begin to fade, allowing new perspectives to emerge. In the middle of this uncertainty, something interesting often begins to happen. Moments of clarity appear unexpectedly. These moments may arrive during quiet reflection, during a conversation, or even during an ordinary moment of daily life. Suddenly, an idea forms that feels more authentic than anything you considered before. You may realize that certain goals you once pursued were never truly your own. You may also begin recognizing patterns in your past experiences. Situations that once felt confusing may now appear connected. Events that once seemed like random setbacks may reveal themselves as turning points that guided you toward your current awareness. These insights do not always appear dramatically. Sometimes they arrive quietly, like pieces of a puzzle slowly coming together. But each moment of clarity adds to the emerging picture of your future. You may begin imagining possibilities that never occurred to you before. Paths that once seemed unrealistic may now appear achievable. The direction of your life begins forming through a combination of reflection, experience, and intuition. Even though the transformation may still feel incomplete, these moments signal that something meaningful is taking shape. It is important to remember that the chaos you may be experiencing during this stage is not meaningless. When the structures of the old life begin dissolving, temporary disorder often appears before the new structure becomes visible. This pattern can be seen in many areas of life. When an old system breaks down, there is often a period of uncertainty before a new system emerges. The same principle applies to personal growth. The disruption you are experiencing may feel uncomfortable, but it is part of the process of reshaping your life. Old habits are fading. Old assumptions are being questioned. Old environments may no longer hold the same influence over your decisions. At the same time, new awareness is forming. New ideas are beginning to appear. New directions are slowly revealing themselves through your experiences. Although the transformation may not yet feel complete, these signs often indicate that your life is undergoing a deeper realignment. The version of life that once defined your identity is gradually being replaced by something that reflects your evolving understanding of yourself. What may feel like chaos in the present moment could actually be the beginning of a more authentic chapter of your life. Moving through a period where your old life appears to be falling apart requires patience, awareness, and a willingness to see your experiences from a different perspective. When change begins happening on multiple levels at once, the natural human response is to try to restore what once felt stable. People instinctively look for ways to return to familiar patterns because familiarity provides comfort. However, transformation rarely allows us to return to the exact version of life we once knew. When someone senses that the structure of their life is beginning to collapse, the first reaction is often resistance. A person may try to repair situations that are already fading. They may attempt to restore relationships that no longer feel aligned. They may hold on to routines, roles, or environments that once provided security but now feel restrictive. This reaction is understandable. The mind is designed to protect us from uncertainty. When stability begins to disappear, fear naturally appears as a defense mechanism. The mind begins searching for ways to rebuild what has been lost. But resisting change often prolongs the discomfort rather than resolving it. When a chapter of life has reached its natural conclusion, attempting to force it to continue can create more confusion and emotional strain. Situations that once worked smoothly may begin requiring constant effort just to maintain their appearance. Relationships that once felt effortless may now feel forced or draining. In these moments, it becomes important to recognize that not every ending is a failure. Sometimes growth requires releasing the version of life that once felt secure. Letting go does not mean that the experiences you had were mistakes. It does not mean that the time you invested was wasted. Instead, it means recognizing that certain chapters of life have completed their role in your journey. Every stage of life teaches lessons that prepare us for the next stage. The environments you once lived in, the people you once connected with, and the goals you once pursued may have been exactly what you needed during that period of time. But once those lessons have been absorbed, the structure that supported them may no longer be necessary. Learning to release those structures is one of the most important aspects of navigating transformation. Letting go creates space. It allows the next chapter of your life to begin forming without being restricted by the expectations of the past. This process does not always happen instantly. Letting go is rarely a single decision. It often unfolds gradually as you begin to accept that your life is changing in ways that cannot be reversed. Acceptance does not mean passive surrender. It means acknowledging reality with clarity rather than fighting against it. Once you accept that change is happening, your attention can shift from trying to preserve the past toward understanding the future that is beginning to take shape. This shift naturally leads to the second important step in navigating transformation, which is developing deeper self-awareness. When the old structure of your life begins dissolving, it creates an unusual opportunity for reflection. Many of the distractions that once occupied your attention begin fading. The routines that once defined your identity may no longer feel as rigid. In the absence of those structures, space appears for deeper questions. You may begin asking yourself questions that you avoided in earlier stages of your life. Questions about what truly matters to you. Questions about what kind of life feels meaningful rather than simply acceptable. Questions about what direction genuinely reflects your inner identity. Self-awareness is the process of exploring those questions honestly. During this period, you may start examining the motivations behind many of your past decisions. You may realize that some choices were influenced by the desire to gain approval from others. Some may have been driven by fear of uncertainty. Others may have been shaped by expectations that were never fully your own. Recognizing these influences does not require judgment. Instead, it offers clarity. With greater clarity comes the ability to redefine what matters most to you. You begin identifying values that feel authentic rather than inherited. You begin imagining a future that reflects your true interests rather than external expectations. This process of self-discovery can be both challenging and empowering. It challenges the identity that you once accepted without question, but it also opens the door to a more intentional life. As your awareness grows, the direction that once felt confusing may slowly begin to make more sense. However, even with greater clarity, transformation still requires patience. The space between the collapse of the old life and the construction of the new one is often the most uncertain stage of the journey. During this transition, it may feel as though you are standing in an unfamiliar landscape without a clear map. The structures that once guided your decisions may no longer exist. The future you are moving toward may still feel incomplete. This can create moments of doubt where you question whether the transformation is truly leading somewhere meaningful. But this transitional space is not empty. It is where many of the most important changes take place beneath the surface. During this time, your mindset continues evolving. Your priorities continue adjusting. Your understanding of yourself becomes more refined. Gradually, small pieces of your new direction begin appearing. You may encounter ideas that resonate deeply with your sense of purpose. You may meet people who share perspectives that support your growth. You may discover interests or opportunities that align more naturally with the person you are becoming. These developments often appear gradually rather than all at once. This is why patience becomes so important during transformation. When people expect immediate answers, they may overlook the subtle progress that is already taking place. Growth often unfolds through a series of small realizations rather than one dramatic moment. By allowing yourself the time to move through this process without forcing immediate certainty, you give your new direction the space it needs to develop naturally. The uncertainty you experience during this stage does not mean you are lost. It often means you are in the middle of discovering a path that is more authentic than the one you previously followed. The collapse of the old life is therefore not the end of your story. It is the moment when the next chapter begins forming. Every experience you had within the old structure of your life contributed to the awareness you now possess. The challenges you faced strengthened your resilience. The questions you asked deepened your understanding of what truly matters. Now those lessons become the foundation for rebuilding your life with greater intention. Instead of constructing your future based on inherited expectations, you now have the opportunity to shape it based on self-awareness. The direction you choose can reflect the values you have discovered, the insights you have gained, and the person you are continuing to become. Transformation is not simply about losing the old life. It is about gaining the clarity needed to build a new one. And when you begin to see your experiences through this perspective, what once looked like collapse begins to reveal itself as the beginning of a deeper and more meaningful journey. If it feels like many parts of your life are changing or falling apart at the same time, it does not necessarily mean that everything is going wrong. In fact, moments like these often arrive during the most important turning points in a person's life. When familiar structures begin to shift and the stability you once relied on starts to weaken, it can feel unsettling. You may question the direction of your journey or wonder whether the effort you invested in building your life has somehow been lost. But sometimes what looks like collapse is actually transition. Life does not always transform through slow and predictable steps. There are periods when change accelerates, when events seem to happen all at once, and when the identity you once carried begins evolving into something new. These moments can feel chaotic, especially when the future has not yet revealed its full shape. Yet beneath the surface of that uncertainty, a deeper process is unfolding. Sometimes life must reorganize itself in order to match the person you are becoming. As you grow internally, your understanding of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment naturally expands. The things that once satisfied you may no longer feel aligned with your deeper awareness. The environments that once supported your growth may now feel limiting. Even the goals you once believed defined your success may begin to lose their significance. This does not mean your past choices were wrong. Every chapter of your life served a purpose at the time it was written. The experiences you had, the people you met, and the paths you explored all contributed to the person you are today. Those chapters provided lessons, resilience, and perspective that prepared you for the stage of life you are now entering. However, growth often requires change. When the person you are becoming no longer fits within the structure of your old life, that structure naturally begins to shift. Situations that once felt permanent may begin to dissolve. Relationships may evolve or take new forms. Opportunities that once seemed certain may disappear, while new possibilities begin quietly forming in their place. At first, these changes can feel like loss. It is natural to feel attached to the identity and stability that defined your previous chapter. But endings do not always represent failure. In many cases, they represent completion. The version of life that once defined you may be reaching its natural conclusion. And when a chapter closes, it creates space. Space for new ideas, space for new opportunities, space for the version of yourself that has been developing through every challenge and realization you have experienced along the way. Every ending carries the possibility of a new beginning. The transformation you are experiencing right now may not yet feel clear, but that does not mean it lacks direction. Often the most meaningful changes begin quietly, long before the final outcome becomes visible. The uncertainty you feel today may be the early stage of a future that aligns more closely with your true identity. Instead of seeing this period as the collapse of your life, consider the possibility that it is the restructuring of your path. The experiences that once felt confusing may eventually reveal themselves as the turning points that guided you toward a deeper purpose. Your story is still unfolding. The challenges you face today may become the lessons that shape the strength and clarity you carry into your next chapter. The questions you are asking now may lead you toward answers that redefine the direction of your life. Growth rarely feels comfortable while it is happening, but it often leads to a level of understanding and authenticity that could not have been reached otherwise. So if you are currently standing in a moment where the old version of your life seems to be fading, remember that endings are often the beginning of transformation. And if this message resonated with you, take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who might need to hear this message, and subscribe to the channel for more content created for the chosen ones.